again. Welcome to my first ever webinar. Unfortunately, I did not comb my hair in stylish sections, neither did I draw my eyebrows. So y'all will not be seeing my face. You'll only be seeing the slideshow. But don't worry, I'm a fun person, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Generally because I'm also awesome. This webinar would run for about an hour. I had to quickly put it together now, and I'm thinking maybe I'm going to have another webinar for another time where I can really dig deep into the things that I'm going to be talking about today. Okay? Okay then. And let us begin. So we will start with the introduction before we go into the, why start a podcast or the little bit about podcasting that I do know. I think we should start with first defining who I am. That's me. I'm the girl in the picture, really cute, lovely hairdo. So I am a performance poet and a podcaster from Nigeria, specifically in West Africa. If I was able to put a podcast together despite the limitations that I'm facing where I am, well, basically, you can too. So I have a series of things that I'll be talking about, how it all began, how I started, my inspiration, then the spoken word, which is my podcast, and why should you attend this webinar and why should you start a podcast? So let's go deeper into it. So this is the story I tell everybody, the soulful story. I am a graduate from the University of Benin with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. I'm not even going to talk too much about that. I am not using that degree. I started writing spoken word sometime in 2017. It was this part of my life when I realized that engineering might not be doing so well. Not that I wasn't doing well, I was doing pretty well, but I just couldn't take the whole engineering thing. I was getting tired, I was struggling, it was getting boring for me. And then I met someone who started writing, and it was spoken word. And it was something that I never even considered before because I hate poetry, I hate the literary arts, but it was some form of release. And that was where it started from. From spoken word, I started performing on stage, started meeting other people who loved spoken word just as much. And then I bonded with them, bonded with other creatives, photographers, musicians, videographers, cinematographers. In Benin City, anyway, that was where I was based for a long time. I've performed on stages in Benin City, in Nigeria, and Lagos. My spoken word has been featured in jingles, short films, and documentaries. My major projects, which is some of the pictures that you can see on the screen. Okay, my dreams don't let me sleep isn't here. It was the, I won't say it was the first short film that I had created, but it's the first short film that I would ever share. 151 was my first album, spoken word album that I had put together. So yeah, and then I had my listening party and I had people come around and basically celebrate with me. So those things actually built it built a foundation as to how I became the person that I am today. Now, we're going to talk about my inspiration. I figured if you're going to be taking a class from me, you should at least know the people that I look up to. These 4 people basically changed my life. The first one, as you can see, is Sully Breaks. He's a spoken word poet in the UK. And I think the first spoken word piece that I heard from Sully Breaks was, "I will not let exam results decide my fate." And it was there that I realized, I told you before that I had issues with school. And I said, well, maybe I don't have to leave it to a system to tell me exactly how I'm going to turn out. And I started looking for other other forms of art, other forms of culture that I could basically give back to society. The next person is Prince EA. He uses his art, that's his spoken word piece, to create inspirational pieces. You guys legit need to listen to this guy. He writes the best spoken word pieces and creates the best kind of videos. The next person is Trevor Noah. I know. What is a comedian doing in basically a sea of literary artists? Well, Trevor Noah taught me that it really isn't about your environment. I did all this, and I'm from a third world country, but I have been able to reach out to people and touch people that I never imagined that I would be able to. And just listening to his story, how he broke out of the stereotype and pushed forth into, well, a first world country, for instance, that was amazing. He did all that with comedy. I don't think anybody who would have thought that comedy would take people that far, right? But Trevor Noah did. And I figured if he could, he grew up in a community that was all about racism and he was mixed and all that. Like, his story touched me and it made me feel like if he can do it with comedy, then even though people keep telling me that poetry is dead, I'll be able to find a way to make my art come out. Um, then Chimamanda. Chimamanda is a feminist and an author, but she taught me that the world will remain unfair if we let it. Just because you're a woman or you're Nigerian or you're from a third world country, if you continue to say that because I am in this situation, then I cannot be better. At the end of the day, you're going to make that your reality. And now let's go into what you all are here for, podcasting. The name of my podcast is called The Spoken World, and it is now preparing for its season 3. It's a podcast that focuses on literary arts, basically spoken word artists, which is why I called it The Spoken World. So I feature writers, poets, authors, and enthusiasts from across the globe. Like I've had writers from Australia, India, Ghana, the UK, the US, Canada, basically a lot. I haven't had any from South Africa, but I'm African, so or Austria. Austria is the last continent that the spoken world hasn't touched. So what made me start my podcast was I'm a spoken word artist, as I have, you know, said before, and a lot of people kept asking me what inspired the pieces that I wrote. So I said I was going to create a podcast. It was supposed to be a blog, but I don't. Yeah, I'm a spoken word artist, but I don't like to write long form. And I didn't think I'd be able to sit down and write a long form piece, you know. So I started looking for a way I could share my work, but with sound. I wasn't really good with videos and all of that to say that I was going to create a steady stream of content. So what could I create? And looking around, I said what I actually searched for was a blog for sound. And that was why I saw a podcast. And podcasting wasn't really all, that then, but now it is. Podcasting is everywhere. And I now decided, okay, I'm going to make a podcast where I discuss what inspired each of my pieces. But then I got a DM on Twitter from a gentleman in Ireland after he listened to one of my episodes, and he asked if he could be a guest on my show. And that got me thinking, if someone in Ireland was able to reach me and say he wanted to be a guest on my show, what happens if I reach out to other people from other parts of the world, right? And that was what I did. I went on Twitter, I went on Instagram, I started sending DMs, before Instagram went to shit, where they start to block you if you like too many posts or stuff. And I was just, connecting with as many people as I could. Out of the 10 people that I would send random DMs to spoken word artists asking if they'd like to be on my show, there were like maybe one or two that agreed. And out of the one or two, one would subscribe, not subscribe, one would schedule a date for the interview and actually go through with it. And that's how it went on and on until, well, basically we're in our season 3. All right. Um, the next is, why attend this webinar? I mean, this is the first webinar I've ever hosted. The guys that were here at the beginning noticed the struggle. Maybe we're still struggling. I don't know, but all I'm doing is just talking right now. But why would you pick some hours on a Saturday to sit through this webinar with me? Well, first, I'm awesome, obviously. And second, it's really fun to want to learn something new, even though the person you're learning it from, that's me, I'm not so recognized. But why would you want to listen to me? I started my podcast at Spoken World about 2 years ago, so that has to count for experience or something. I produce podcasts for others. Yeah, I'm a professional podcast editor. My podcast went from local, sorry, to global after just the first 2 episodes. I think that is something that will be interesting to you guys, and you might want to listen till the end. I've interviewed high-profile guests on my show, like Jason David Frank, who played the Green Ranger in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Yeah, he was Tommy Oliver. J.D. Shapiro, award-winning author and screenwriter. No, he's not an author, he's a screenwriter, who worked very closely with Stan Lee for a long time, coming up with comic book content. And then award-winning authors like Christine Lunens, who wrote the book that inspired the movie Jojo Rabbit that won an Oscar, and Michael Grant, the amazing author that wrote the Gone series. Being able to reach out to guests like this, you would want to know, how did that happen? How did I do that? What are the tricks, the secrets? So maybe you'd like to stay till the end of this class with me. I also live in a third world country where there is little power, there is limited data, and a whole lot of other limited stuff. But if I could make sure that it was held up to a particular standard, right? If I can do that, then why can't you? And the last reason is because, well, it's free. So go to another module. Now, why would you want to start a podcast? I mean, why, right? And here's a couple of reasons why. Okay, the first is why start a podcast. Okay, here are my 5 reasons why you would start a podcast. 1, you get to tell engaging stories. Like, look at me just rapping about my life. And I get to do that on a podcast. And the thing about a podcast is, like, unlike watching a YouTube video or watching a series, you can listen to a podcast while you run, while you drive, while you're cleaning up, the same way you listen to music while you're doing the dishes. Like, people can listen to your stories while they do everything, take a shower, anything. So yeah, it's definitely a good way to tell your stories. You build new skills along the way, like sound engineering and radio imaging. I didn't know that I would ever learn what sound engineering was until I started working on this podcast. Like, everything that I've done has been just amazing to me, because I didn't think I could actually sit down and start to cut out tracks and, do the whole noise reduction, put in sound effects and whatnot. Then you get to connect with people from anywhere and let your listeners hear different cultures in every accent. Like, to me, that's another amazing thing about podcasts. You can write in a blog that you had an interview with someone in Austria, and well, it's all good and fine, but when your listeners get to hear that person, speak, you can. One thing about accents, I think I learned this definition from Trevor Noah, is that people speak a particular language based on the rules of their native language. And when you start to hear that sort of accent, oh wow, this is how this person speaks. I was able to talk to someone in Iceland. I've never heard someone with that kind of accent, and it was just amazing to me. Connecting with different people, hearing different accents, you can do it. It's easy. um I didn't know anything about podcasting until I started, and now I'm this far. I didn't go to any school to learn how to do it, and it's also new. When I say new, I mean it's one of the formats or forms of media that people are using now. So it's definitely something that you would like to tap into. All right, now before I go to this next module, I'd like to stop here and ask if anyone has any questions or comments. Okay, how do you do your interviews online? Are there ever sound quality issues with this? This is from Lucy. Oh wow. Laura, can you still not hear me? Anyway, Lucy, that's actually a really good question. I am going to, while we go through the this webinar, you will get your answer. All right. So just wait a bit for that. You will get your answer. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Yeah, I'll wait for a couple minutes for questions and comments. Okay, I will take it as there are no questions or comments. Then is that okay? All right. All right, then let me ask everyone a question so that we'll have a more um, informative discussion here. Why did you decide to take this class? Oh, wow, Nanso, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Means a lot. To anyone who's still here, you can share the webinar link with any of your friends so they can join in. Oh, all right. So Laura says, I decided to take this class to improve my podcasting skill. So are you already a podcaster? Okay, she already has a podcast. That's great. That is great. Christopher, we will get there. We will get there. All right. So, okay, then let's move on. So, the next part of this is content. All right, here we are. How to tell your story. When you love talking about something, you usually make others love it too. I mean, have you listened to when people are talking about football or music or a particular movie that they just saw? Like they basically exude this type of, I don't know if I can say the word aura. And then you feel that when they are telling you that story. So that is what I want us to learn today. We have to be able to tap into that when we want to tell our stories, even though it's with a podcast. For one important reason, unlike a video, people can't see you, right? And unlike a book, they can't make up the tone in their head or what they think or how they feel the person should say it. You've always heard this term, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Listeners can smell bullshit from a mile away because all they can hear is your voice. And if you are telling a story and you're not being true to it, people would notice. Make sure, usually, if you're talking about something that you love, you don't talk about it in a monochromatic tone. You put a lot more life into it. And that's basically what you should do when you're telling your story in a podcast. So now I have a list of things that I think would definitely benefit us while we're talking about the content in your podcast. Like I said, make sure you're talking about something you love and something you believe in. Write it down. Write it down because usually when people don't write things down and they just, you know what, let me just wing it. One, it's very easy for you to forget what you're going to say. So you start to hear a lot of long pauses. People are repeating themselves and it's not flowing the way it's supposed to flow. No, please write it down. And be careful not to read verbatim because people can tell when you're just reading it. Put a lot of emotion, a lot of life, be a lot more animated with your voice. Like you can do so much, not overly animated, but put a lot more into it when you're telling your story. Avoid repeating yourself. This is something I keep telling people who want to start podcasts. Do not say one thing and then go back and say it again and then go back and say it again. It's the same thing with when I am reading a book and I see one particular word being repeated several times. It's different if it was intentionally done by the author to lay some sort of emphasis. And then it's another when they don't know that they are doing it. You get like how Lagosians or Nigerians use the word actually. Actually, we came back from school today, and actually, we didn't know that we're supposed to buy beans when we're coming home. But actually, it was because that sort of thing. Like it basically gets to me, it's a huge turn off. Please do not repeat yourself. Try to break the habit of saying and ums when speaking. This is something I've noticed whenever I listen to people speak on the news. We were trying to come together and whenever I'm editing podcast episodes, I spend like more than an hour taking out the ums in between sentences or in between words. Please try your best not to say or ums. Try to break that habit. It's usually people usually start to say and ums when they see the red light which says record or something, and then they start to repeat themselves, ums. I say start with pre-recorded episodes and get a bank of interviews. One of the reasons why I say have pre-recorded episodes is because if it's live, every mistake, every issue is out there. You can't take it back. For instance, for those of us that are Nigerian, we have issues with NEPA here. And as you are talking, your battery just dies. Or internet just, life happens. The life of a Nigerian happens. It now becomes a problem, right? So it's best if you have all of those orishi happening and then you take your time to cut it out later and then build this beautiful interview that makes people not even believe that there was any such issue. There was this particular episode that I had of my podcast. It was called Bloopers, where I put together all the mistakes that I had made. I put everything together in a particular episode and people were shocked because they didn't even know. Usually, whenever they listen to the episodes, they don't hear any of that happening. They just think that everything is running smoothly. But then the episode came out. My mother came to ask me about tap that was flowing. My dad told me to come and try on some shoes. There were interruptions. So start with pre-recorded episodes. Another thing is because you're just starting, right? You don't have to worry so much about what the next episode has to be about, because now you have time to have those interviews and then arrange them and then tell people that, okay, my podcast is going to start at this particular time, and then start pushing out content. When you have pre-recorded episodes with based on different topics, you can now arrange them, right? Okay, for instance, if someone is talking about, a lot of people do love life, so no, that's a complete turn off for me because everybody's doing it. So no, I do not do anything about anybody's love life. Um, Sports, right? There's usually until now with the pandemic, there's usually content about sports. So one match is coming, one something happened to somebody else. You're able to write down, okay, this is what I want this episode to be about. These are the people that I want to talk to, and then put everything together, arrange it, and then start to push them out one by one when you're ready to put out content. If you're interviewing a guest, send them questions before that day. And remember, don't just read out the questions. You want it to sound like a conversation, not an interrogation. This was one of the major mistakes that I made when I was starting out as well. Sorry. Yeah, so because I wasn't so good with interviewing people, I would just read the questions as they were. I would ask someone a question, they would answer, then I would go to the next question. And that made it boring. That made it not engaging because, like I said, it sounded like an interrogation. Even my guest was feeling uncomfortable. So, what you do is you ask a question. Let's say your questions were supposed to be, why did you write Little Red Riding Hood? And the next one after it was, how did you feel like when it got published? And as you ask the question, why did you write Little Red Riding Hood? She would tell you, well, actually, one of my sisters was sent by my mother to go and give food to our grandmother, and on the way, she saw this dog. But the dog was actually very friendly until the mother came around and chased my little sister. That is another conversation. You can be like, then what happened after? Did you know about it? You know, what did they do to the dog? Did the dog, bite your sister? Before you now go into, speaking of which, what made you publish it? That is more of a conversation than after she had just told you something that could have built into an amazing story. You just move straight to, so what made you publish it? There's a huge disconnect there. So yeah, try to make it a conversation and not an interrogation. The last one is keep the bloopers. Keep them. People love to see that you made mistakes. It makes you human. They like to listen to all the things that went wrong, and that is what I do. At the end of every season, I either push out a bloopers episode special or I create a Q&A special. Just an episode to relate to my listeners. Let's utilize the power of social media. Like I said here, social media was meant for socializing, not just showing off. If you want to know how I was able to meet those guys I talked about, all those authors and actors and childhood heroes, sometimes all you have to do is ask. Literally. I asked. Jason David Frank reached out to me on Instagram. JD Shapiro, it was his marketer or his agent that reached out to me. Other authors, I looked up their agent's number and then I sent them an email asking them if they would like to be on a podcast. It's literally that easy. Of course, there are high profile guests that you might not be able to get that easy, but it always starts from somewhere. Reach out to as many people as possible. Don't reach out to one and think, oh, one is enough, or two people, no problem. No, reach out to all of them. Learn how to write a compelling pitch that you can use as cold emails. Cold emails is when you write a particular email that can be sent to more than one person, more than two people, more than 10 people. So I can send to as many people as I want. But I'm asking about the same thing. I did that when I was looking for authors to be on my show. I sent out as many cold emails as possible, and some replied, some didn't. The point is, I was able to put myself out there and get a reply. The worst they can say is no. And at the end of the day, they don't know you, so you're not really losing much, really. Tools like IMB Pro, which was what I used to reach out to some of the authors, could help, or just simply search for their agent's email. The thing about IMB Pro is that you're going to have to pay. It's not a free tool. Um, um, Send follow-up emails. Yeah, learn to send follow-up emails, but do not spam. Send follow-up emails after like a couple of days if they've not replied. It could be that they've actually read that email and then they forgot to get back to you. That's happened a couple times. Just remind them and be like, hey, I'm just hello, this is Huwa. I'm reaching out to you or following up based on the previous email that I sent. Did you see it? Are you interested? But after you sent the first one, even if you're going to send another one, make sure that you're giving them time, about a month or 2 months before you reach out to them again. Okay. Keep looking up new things online. I learned all these things because I kept basically, reading and rereading, looking up new stuff, finding new things. At the end of the day, you're definitely bound to find something. um, I learned about Anchor because I kept looking up online, and yeah, so sometimes the things that you're looking for, you might not see them today. Like I'm a testament to that. I didn't see what I was looking for that day, but the very next day I was able to find it. Or no, let me not say the very next day. Like 2 weeks after, I found something on it. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter are all free tools that you can use to get more subscribers, listeners, guest recommendations. Even like social media marketing is really hard work. I'll tell you that. It's a lot of effort, but they are free tools at the end of the day, and if you're able to utilize them, you will definitely get more people to listen to your podcast. As long as I said when we're talking about content, you're true to yourself, you keep it interesting, you don't repeat yourself, you reach out to people that are basically talking about the same subject as you are. I think I missed something before. Make sure that it's niche, because if you're talking about a wide range of things, okay, someone who's interested in sports might not like spoken word. So today you were talking about sports, and in fact, it was a very interesting episode. Then the next day he comes back and he's hearing poetry. He most likely will not come back if he finds out that it's not even a sports podcast. Then get another podcast. Yes, reach out to other podcasters on Twitter, on Instagram, and tell them that you want to be on their show. Podcasters are looking for guests, like they are looking for guests. As long as you have and as long as you have something to say, like a news story, they will definitely let you in on their show. And believe in yourself. A lot of people are always thinking, I can't do it because what if they say no? You're already killing it before. Like, just do it. Go out there, put yourself out there. Like I said, the worst that can happen is that they say no. All right. Now, before I move on to the next module, which is how to run it solo, I am going to pause for a bit and see if anyone has any questions or comments. Okay, so Nonso asked, for me, I've been looking for ways to share my story and expertise. I am, oh, okay, that was what he said before. I'm currently considering podcasting, so I'm here to make sure that I'm right. Thank you, Lucy. Okay. I realize that most people don't like listening to long podcasts. How do you handle length issues while recording? Make sure that your intro is spectacular and keep it interesting till the end. I started episode one of my first podcast, I think it was about 15 minutes, and people loved it. And for season one, the length was 15 to 20 minutes. But I think is some episodes, some people still said it was long, even though it was just 15 to 20 minutes, and the standard like podcast episode is about an hour. But people were still saying it's too long, it's too long. And I was like, it's because it's not interesting. You can listen to a 10-minute episode and think it's the longest episode you've ever made. And you can listen to an hour and feel like it's not enough. So make sure that you keep it interesting. Make sure that if it's supposed to be a podcast that has a lot of suspense, you have to make sure that the content that you've written keeps them on that all the way till the end, right? So you just keep doing that. If it's supposed to be comedy, make sure it's comedic all the way to the end. But structuring your content is another thing that you have to consider, right? Don't just throw things in the air and wait and think that you're going to catch it before it falls. Make sure that you have a structure for your content so that your audience can follow. Okay, do you do any research on listenership in Nigeria? Honestly, Nigerians don't really have what's it called, a way of documenting things, because I've actually tried my best to look at the listeners in Nigeria, except I conduct my own research. But I think it's a whole lot shorter than people outside the country, because people who review my podcast, someone did say that my 40-minute to an hour podcast was short, while someone else said it was really long. Okay, is there a market for it here? A market made up of Nigerians? I hate to say this, but Nigerians follow trend. So basically, it's until they see it happening in other parts of the country before they start to pick up on it as well, just like YouTube and every other social media platform. Until it starts to pick up somewhere. Before I started the podcast, a lot of people did not know what podcasting was, but now people are picking up on it. There are some podcasts that have really gone pretty far. Not a lot that I know of, because I don't listen to a lot of Nigerian podcasts. So, yeah. Are there any other questions? Questions, comments? All right, then. Let us move to the next, which is how to run it solo. And here we're going to talk about the technical stuff. So these are free tools that basically transformed my podcast into something that I didn't even think my podcast could become. Taking it from low quality to high quality stuff. The first one is Audacity. This is a sound engineering tool. It is where it's a free open source tool, meaning anybody can basically work on the software. And it is available for most, if not all, operating systems. While Anchor is a free hosting platform where you can host, promote, and distribute your podcasts. Let's go into them a whole lot more. So, Audacity. You can record audio on Audacity with your phone or your laptop. When I mean how to use Audacity, like you can get audio files after recording on your phone or after recording on your laptop. But I prefer to use this microphone, Blue Snowball Ice Condenser microphone. It is the first microphone that I got, and it's the microphone that I still use now, even though I have a Behringer C1 microphone. Both of them are condensers. Um, I recommend getting a USB plug-in microphone like my baby. What I mean is you don't have to connect it to a sound card. You can just get this microphone and attach it straight to your system and start recording and making magic. Unlike other condenser microphones or dynamic microphones that you are going to have to get some cords and then plug it into your sound card before you can plug it into your computer. So last time it cost about $50 or thereabout. But you can still run a podcast by recording audio on your phone. It's just that it won't be as effective. This is the only piece of equipment that you'll be spending money on. Microphone. All right, and this is how the interface looks. This is a bit blurry, but yeah, you just have something simple like this, but it's pretty powerful. I use it to edit all of my episodes, intros, outros, in betweens, in the middle. It supports multi-track, so you can have like different tracks in it, and you can edit it. Like basically just download it and play with it until you learn how to use it. Watch some YouTube videos. I'm thinking of hosting another webinar or training where the people who are participating will have to produce an episode. So we'll just run that through. I'll be working on an episode, you'll be working on an episode, and then we produce intros, a short in between, and then an outro. All right, and now the next one is Anchor. Some of you might already be familiar with this term. And the thing about Anchor is that I started using Anchor when they just brought out Anchor and they were talking about Anchor. Like before that time, I didn't know anything about podcasting, but I knew I did not have money. I knew that I did not have money. And but Buzzsprout and the other podcast hosting platforms were asking me to pay a month in order to use that platform, and I still did not even have money for that. So when I used Anchor, I found out that it was a free platform, and I was skeptical at first, but I was like, what do I have? Besides, beggars can be choosers, and I decided to use Anchor, and it was the best decision that I ever made. And Anchor, you can actually record your podcast episode, publish it, and they will help you to distribute your RSS feed, which is a link that you use to distribute your podcast episode to other podcatchers like Apple Music, Spotify, oh my god, I just say Castbox, Castbox, Radio Public, Podbean, and so much more. My podcast is currently on 11 platforms. You can also create lyric videos. The thing about podcasts is that it's just sound, and that can be discouraging for some of the people who listen to podcasts. Like they want to see something, right? So they create like lyric videos. You just take out a snippet and then put it up, and you can work on the lyric videos. Another thing that Anchor does is that you're able to see your analytics. So you can find out what geographic location most of your listeners are at. United States, United Kingdom. Mine is the US, the UK, France, Australia, and Greece. That's where a lot of my listeners are from, mostly France, which is crazy. You can also see what devices they are using. So those of us who are good with analytics, web analytics, and optimization, you would be able to know, okay, what is the problem actually? Why aren't people using a lot of mobile, or why aren't people using more of the website, and just tweak and make something better about those devices. Another thing that Anchor does is you can check how many how many women or men are seeing are listening to your podcast, and also the age range, so you can focus, okay, if it's young people, the kind of content that you're going to push out to young people. If it's older people, the kind of content you're going to push out to them. Same thing, devices and listening platforms. So iPhone, Mac, Android, the web, their desktop, laptop, whatever. And then podcatchers, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public. They're able to tell you which of them, people are using. Let me just go back for a minute. Okay. And if you're in the US, unfortunately, this particular option is not available to anybody outside the US or Canada. You're able to get money while you're podcasting. So you use Anchor Support, where your listeners just basically dash your money. And they also have their monetization platforms, where they basically link you up with other advertisers or companies that would like to advertise on your podcast. But it's also based on how many people are listening. All right, the next set of free tools, Setmore and Zencastr. Setmore is a free booking app, and it's also a very comprehensive calendar. Now, people can go on there, right? You would set what time you have free on that calendar. They will look at your free time and then pick a time or date that is convenient for them. That way, there won't be a lot of back and forth. You send an email, can you do May 3rd, 11 a.m.? Oh, I'm busy May 3rd, 11 a.m. Can we do May 7th, 9 p.m.? Oh, that's going to be really late on my side. Just use Setmore. So when they see, they know, okay, this time is free and this time is not free. Another good thing about Setmore is that it is set in your local time zone. So if you're using Setmore and you're in Nigeria and it's showing, let's say, 5 p.m., someone else in the UK, once they get the Setmore app and get your calendar, will see midday, noon or 1 p.m., depending on where they are. They're able to, basically see it based on their time, and then pick a time that is convenient for them. If there are any issues, then they can reach out to you. But it has basically cut down the back and forth that usually happens whenever you want to schedule a date. And another one is Zencastr, which is, to me, a secret weapon, because not a lot of people know about Zencastr. Now, some people have asked me, I think this is where I'm going to answer someone's question. I can't remember if it is Laura or Lucy's question. When she asked how I do my interviews online, is with this tool, Zencastr. Usually, if I'm going to interview anybody outside the country, people would think, oh, I just use a phone call like WhatsApp or something. The thing about WhatsApp is that it's a normal phone call, right? And the way normal phone calls work is that you lose a lot of quality because they're trying to transmit the sound as fast as possible. So a lot of the quality is lost. And I'm an audiophile. And when I listen to my podcast and it doesn't sound like something that was produced out of this, studio that was built out of diamonds, it just doesn't sit right with me. So I went online to look up ways I could improve the quality, and I found Zencastr. So I can basically interview people from different parts of the world. And when I put it together, it sounds like we are in the same room. If you listen, I actually wanted to play a snippet for you guys, but my laptop started acting up, so I cannot play it. Anyway, if you listen to the spoken word, check out the difference in audio quality from episode 3, and then check out one of the episodes from the new season after bloopers, and you will note the difference, right? From something that was recorded they were actually recording in the same place. I just changed the tools. And Zencastr has a free plan. You get 8 hours of conversation a month. I don't know who you're interviewing that you're going to have to talk for more than 8 hours a month, Sha. And you would have to download the files in MP3. Oh, I meant to say, instead of WAV, you can't download it in any other format apart from MP3. But if you use Audacity, you could edit it in MP3 and then export it as a WAV file. So either ways, it still works. But now with the pandemic happening, they are giving out their pro plan. They're giving out all the tools, all the features to everybody because of what's happening. So if you're a podcaster and you start right now, like Zencaster, considering the fact that you can use it and you can interview a lot of people and still download it in their WAV format, like WAV format, like what are you waiting for? One of the downers is that you're going to have to use it from your system, and you actually do not need a microphone to use Zencaster. Like you can speak using just your computer's inbuilt microphone. So yeah, Zencaster is the way. And the way Zencaster works, if you look to the lower right, is that it records everything you're saying from your end and everything your guests is saying from their end. So you download two separate files, which I think is amazing, and then you can edit them by overlaying them. This way, if something happened in the other person's end, let's say a dog was barking or some loud noise occurred there, you can easily cut it out because it happened on their end. But if it was just one file, you could have been talking while that happened, right? So you have like a mix of those two sounds and you can't cut any of that out. If you're into sound engineering or audio editing, you would understand what I'm talking about. So maybe if I have another training, we'll do more on that. So, all right, another set of free tools, Canva and Headliner. Most of my graphic designs were done using Canva, which is basically a free tool for graphic design. They have thousands of free templates for images, animated posters, and videos. Like you can use it on your phone and you can use it on your PC. Convenient, just convenient. Make it the way you want it to be. Sit down. There are different formats that you can use, and you can use your own images and just tweak it however you want and design it and just put it out there. Make a template for the guests that are going to come on your show and just put it out on your Instagram and Twitter. Headliner. This tool is used Sorry, I'm checking questions. I thought someone asked a question. Okay, sorry. Let's move on. So yeah, it's used to make it's a free tool that is used in making audiograms. What are audiograms? Audiograms are a way to create video for your sound, right? So how do you propose to people? How do you tell people what someone has said on your podcast? Easy. Use Headliner to create an audiogram. Play a snippet of what the person said using a picture and put it up on Instagram. That way, everyone can hear what you're doing with your tools. Like I said, when I do another training, I'm going to make everyone use Headliner at the end of the podcast creation. So yeah, it's free as well. And the best part of all the tools that I have mentioned so far is that there is no watermark. Oh geez, like someone like me who legit needs, that watermark. So who doesn't need that watermark? Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Headliner, definitely the way to go. All right. I think we're past how to tell your story and content. And the last one, we talk about promotion and monetization. All right, even though I tell people all the time that they shouldn't do stuff because of the money, we're going to find a way to keep our show running, right? I mean, am I right? Anyway, what are the platforms that you can use to make sure that you get money? I'm sorry, something is wrong with the setting. Let's go back. Okay. What are the platforms that you can use to keep your show running, right? Basically get change for everything that you've done. So we have podcast hosting platforms like Buzzsprout and Anchor. I don't use Buzzsprout because I have to pay to use it. And you still have to like distribute your RSS feed to Apple Podcasts and all of that by yourself. So what's the point? Um, that's why I use Anchor because it's easy distribution. I get my analytics, all of that for free, and they don't have to put their watermark on it. Another plus. But the thing about Anchor is that Nigerians cannot use it. Um, what I mean is only people in the US can make money using Anchor, at least for now. Then you have podcast advertising networks. What they do is they connect podcasts with probable businesses, probable businesses. So they connect you with an with a brand, and then they work out the rates, and based off of each, you're basically paid per episode. You can also ask your listeners for support by using Patreon, and for Nigerians, I say use Payoneer because we can't use PayPal. So basically, use Payoneer. You can reach out to organizations and brands by yourself. Basically, like I said, believe in yourself. The worst that can happen is that they say no and they don't even know you. So, I mean, just go ahead and do it. Then you can also bill your guests for promo appearances, even though it's not something that I do. I like to let anybody just basically come on my show. How I make money is basically from my listeners supporting me. So they donate, use them to my Patreon, and yeah, that's basically it. And that comes to the end of the basic podcasting class. I am really sorry that I changed the timing twice. A lot of things happened this past week, and I just couldn't get it together. But if I ever do another one, we're definitely going to have to do a hands-on sort of thing. So everybody's going to have to produce a podcast at the end of the day. So, do we have any questions? All right, Lucy. She says, "Thank you so much. This has been invaluable." You are welcome. Is a laptop necessary? Oh, is a laptop a necessity? I would say it is. Even though there are people who are able to host their podcast just using um, an Anchor app on their phones. So I don't use my phone for it. I like to add Temere whenever I'm doing my intros and my outros. So I use a laptop. Yeah. So basically, for me, I would say go ahead, start something. So if it's only your phone that you can use for now, go ahead. You can do that with Anchor. But later on, please try and get a laptop so that you can confidently build it from scratch and add the necessary things that you want to be in it and make it a whole lot more richer. That's what I'll say to that. And to Moshepe, yes, you get the slides after. All right, Nonso says this is quite a starter, very detailed and inspiring. Thank you. And Laforte says, thank you. Thank you. Really? Thank you. I just wish I didn't have to change the time several times. And yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. What is your motivation at times when you get a low number of listeners? I will not even tell you how bad I feel or I felt the first time that I pushed my season 2 episode 1 episode out. It was heartbreaking, and even after all the marketing I had done, even though I didn't spend any money, like I said, I didn't spend a lot of money. I just um I just saw 63 listens after 2 days and it broke my spirit. I was hoping for like 200. um so but the funny thing is it built up to 200 like later on. And I was pretty happy about that. Um But things you just have to keep going. What inspires me, like I say to everyone, is the little things. When someone sends you an email and says, "This episode inspired me." When I'm hosting a webinar and every like you guys showed up and you're asking questions, it makes me feel like my podcast episode is valuable to someone. So even if it's just that one person that is listening to my episode, I feel like I have a right to, or I have a duty to keep pushing content out for just one person or two people or ten people. Thank you very much. This is Lucy. This is the best thing I've spent my data on since the lockdown. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Okay, quick question. How do you add background music? This is from Paul. Okay. Like I said, I use Audacity, so I import my files in form of MP3 or WAV, depending on how I get the audio file, and then I work on it. A little bit of fade in, fade out, envelope work, and mix it with my recording. Like I said, maybe I'll put together a training so that we can have a more um, hands-on sort of thing going on. How did you get your intro? Okay, so I actually got it from a friend. I called him and I told him that I was doing a podcast and if he had any music that he would want to promote, he could give it to me and I'll promote it and tell people that he created it. So I got it from Memma Music. Awesome artist. So he basically put that together and yeah, it happened. Got finally. All right, at the end of this, I'm going to send you this slide, not just this slide, this lesson as well, and links to everything that I shared, including my episode and my Patreon page. So if you guys that listen, please, 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 rate my podcasts on Apple Music, on Stitcher, write reviews, share with your friends, let people know what you've learned today. All right, so Moshope, you've been on mute. I think you can unmute yourself. I'm trying to unmute everybody. So Lucy, you've been unmuted as well. You can unmute and say something. All right. Hey, Lucy, you can speak. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for this. It's been really, really good.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining. So you can I'm really sorry, like honestly, this is the first time I'm actually using GoToWebinar or any of the formats that I used. So it was a bit confusing. That's why I didn't know exactly how to go about muting or not muting. So any questions, any comments, please share with us.
I think I've asked all the questions I needed to. Yeah, it's been, especially the tools you've shared, like I don't know where I would have heard of them, but they're going to like completely change the way I do podcasts. So yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Thank you. Do you own your own podcast?
Yeah, I do. I think we talked on Twitter. Mine's called Talking Ink.
Oh, right. Yes. Thank you so much for coming to this podcast, even though I rescheduled several times. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. So I'm going to ask someone else. Laura. Hello, Laura. So you can unmute yourself and speak.
Hello.
Hi, I can hear you. As everybody else.
Okay. Thank you so much for this webinar. It was very enlightening. I appreciate.
Great, thank you. So, do you have any questions at all that you would like to ask?
None that I haven't already asked. I think I've asked all the questions I have.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. So I'm going to mute you now and ask someone else. Moshoke, you can unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you so much for the lesson on podcasting. I think I've asked the major question I wanted to ask. I think the other question I have is, I think it ties more to getting started. So I think for a lot of people, starting a podcast can be challenging, especially when they struggle with procrastination, fear. So how I think the major question I have is getting past that initial fear. So let me make it more personal. How did you start your podcast? Like, were you scared? How did you deal with the fear of failure, of the fear of people not listening to your podcast, of it sucking? How did you get past that initial stage? Because I think everyone actually goes through that. Apart from that, I think I don't have any other question. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. And that's a really deep question. Okay, so how did I? So I wanted to start a podcast. I didn't know who was going to listen to it. And I thought I was in that moment when I said I was going to start a podcast. So what I did was just I told like 10, 20 of my friends that I was going to start a podcast before I changed my mind, and then I told a couple more, and then I started making graphic art, and I hadn't even recorded my first episode. I did that because I was like, I cannot change my mind now. I already, so even when the fear came and all of that, I had to do it afraid, which is what a lot of people do. What makes you brave is when you're scared, but you still do it. So the same thing with this webinar. I have never hosted a webinar before. I didn't know how it was going to end. I didn't know if people were going to show up. But what I did was that I just created a graphic art and sent to everybody that I knew, put it on Twitter, put it on Instagram, and I didn't start even putting the presentation together until this morning. Because I said I already promised people, I already sent emails, people are supposed to show up for this, I cannot disappoint them. So yeah, do it afraid, and it's not so bad if you put a little pressure on yourself. Yeah, definitely put a little pressure on yourself so that even when you start to change your mind and be like, oh, can I really do this? One of the reasons why you have to do it is because, well, there are people who are counting on you and now you have to do it. Okay. I'm going to unmute someone else. So you can unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, hello everyone. Hello, Hawa. Thank you so much for this podcast. And the podcast, like I initially said, for me, have always been looking for a way to reach out. I considered blogging. I considered other things, and I I listened to some of your podcasts when you shared some of your links, and I thought this might be something I'm looking for. A place where I could share my story and also talk about some other things I feel, I like to share with people. And I said when I saw your ad, I said let me even come and see what if this is really what I want to do. And to truly, I want to first, like I said, thank you. I appreciate how you are quite detailed and it's quite comprehensive enough. Like the other participant arts, most times starting is always the issue, dealing with the fear, having the, that dedication, and like you said, doing it afraid and really knowing that It's about like what you want to say, what you want to put out there. So the question I want to ask you is, in regards to content, like how do you consistently keep your content interesting? Like the quality of people you bring to your podcast, and like, is it based on the feedback you get from your listeners, or is it based on like the vision or whatever? Like, how do you just make sure that you keep it interesting, and like what's the drive? Like, what is the drive? Like the motivation? Like, what just keeps it going for you? I don't know if you get my question.
I do actually, and thank you for that. So, how I'm able to actually put it together? Um, so I basically go out and look for spoken word artists, and then I listen to their pieces. And if the spoken word piece is something that's interesting, someone wrote about domestic violence. Another one wrote about surviving a car accident. Another one wrote about their mothers and how grateful she is to her mom. Another one wrote about how her son had a fatal disease, and luckily they were able to see a heart donor and the relationship that they built with the heart donor. Like, these are interesting stories that on a norm you will not regularly see. So it's basically going around scouring for content, which is what I do. Another thing that I said is make sure that you do something that you enjoy, something that you love. And since spoken word or literary art is something that I enjoy, it's not that hard to find content. So some people talk to me and tell me, I think you should write about this, or I think the next episode should be about this. Um, so I would take that all in and then see if I can find any spoken word artist or author who speaks around that topic. But then again, maybe as I'm looking for that person, I see other spoken word artists or other authors who are talking about a different topic that I feel is equally interesting. When it comes to stories and how people write stories, I don't think you can really run out of stories. Even something as interesting as someone writing a story about a mermaid, right? Someone writing a mystery novel or something like that, because it's about telling stories, right? The main reason why I had this podcast is because I want to listen to the story behind the story. So I'll definitely find someone. Um, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, of course. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, I can
Yes,
hear
it
you.
does. And yeah, it does. And for me, like you said, talk about what you love. My interest with regards to technology and its penetration in Africa, and how much we could actually use it to solve problems, basic things, and also for me, so like keeping the content basic and having the reach out, and my audience, like I could tell you, your audience is not just in Africa or Nigeria, and for me, I'm looking at solving problems that are just typical to Africa. I don't know if there are people talking about what I want to talk about, but I just want to, like, in a way where people can easily relate with it, connect with it in a way that is, they can just, like you said, Africa, in Nigeria, we barely listen, or people prefer comedy or things that they could just make them laugh or feel better because of, challenges and things we face over here. So, but like I said, mm, so for me, it's just about content and keeping it consistent and all that. So I can actually get a cue for what you just shared. So thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you, Nonso, for asking that. Um, OC, okay, you're going to be the last person that speaks before we wrap it up. All right, OC, you can speak if you want to. All right. And that is it for today's class or webinar. I will send you a copy of this presentation, as well as links to my podcast, and I will keep everyone updated if I decide to post another one, which I don't know how that one's going to end out. This was a lot of work on its own. All right. So thank you, everyone.